All right, guys, we are doing tips and tricks with Amy and Drew, and today we're going to talk about for sale by owners, compensation forms, all the tips and tricks that we need to make sure that we use to be professional and efficient with this. So the first thing, what do we need to do? What do we need to know about for sale by owners? What's the first tip or trick?
So obviously there's probably a lot more in the market because people think, oh, real estate's so hot right now, I'm just going to represent myself as a seller. So you have to figure out how to ensure that that seller's going to pay you. You're going to still go through the transaction. So you have to have a conversation with the seller and say, you know, are you willing to pay my 3%? And if so, here's the form that I need you to sign. You should have that signed before you even
show it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what good is it to go to, you know, for you to spend your time if they're not going to work with you?
And it's procuring costs. If you showed a buyer without having that form signed, and then they both like, nah, it's not interested, right? And then the buyer magically buys it 3 months later, you have a form that said, no, number one, I showed it. Number two, I have a compensation agreement that said I was entitled to compensation. So not that your buyers would be shady or the for sale by owner would be shady. I'm just going to be. So we just need to make sure, yeah, she's giving me the prompt because we need to make sure you know what that form is. So like she said, commission agreement is the form number is 901. So make sure you're using that CVRMLS 901 form before you need to have the conversation, have it filled out, have it signed before you step foot in that appointment at the very first. Be careful because open houses, FSBOs do open houses all the time. Your buyer slides in there. You know, you could be cut out unintentionally or intentionally, and we don't want that to happen. And what is the other reason why we use that form?
So let me just add one thing. I've had multiple agents in the coaching program who they've either shown a house outside of our MLS or a FSBO, and they're getting ready to submit an offer. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they have not had that form signed. So just remember, you have to submit it before you submit the offer and make sure that it's signed.
Because it also, that same form 901 references non-MLS for CVR MLS, right? So we're RER, CVR MLS. So let's say, I don't know, you're showing Charlottesville properties, right? You're allowed to show any and sell any properties in Virginia Beach, right? Yeah. But it's not a cooperative MLS, right? So what it's saying, if it's outside that MLS, you're not guaranteed money. So it's the same, treat it like a FSBO, get that compensation form filled out by the listing agent, broker, back to you if you're not in that MLS. So that's kind of a twofer there with that same form. And then going into the seller represented form, that form number we wrote down is 370. And what is that form kind of, what's the point of that form?
So it's when they don't have an agent.
Gotcha.
So it's usually a FSBO. It's usually a FSBO, or, you know, I know we've had some agents who, like I had somebody who was at a yard sale, and then the next door neighbor was like, I'm going to sell my house. Yeah. So it was one of those weird situations.
There's one side of the transaction, it's actually, we come see it as unrepresented seller. That's 98%. There's sometimes unrepresented buyers. I've seen that in like rental property where the tenant wants to buy the property, but they don't have an agent, and then seller / landlord / listing agent is that. So the represented form at 370 is just disclosure, similar to a dual or designated. It just tells all parties that, hey, I'm representing the buyer, and you are representing, you as the seller are representing yourself. You have to get your own legal counsel, you have to pay your own attorney fees, or do what you need to do to get the transaction to the finish line. I'm representing this guy.
And my word of advice, because I've done a number of FSBOs, that seller will all of a sudden start leaning on you and start asking you questions because you've provided all the forms. You've provided everything. So they're like, oh, well, you know, that's not your responsibility.
Yeah, you don't have to communicate that. Again, it's a very similar vibe as dual agency because you're representing your client. You're not representing that self-represented person. That's what that form 370 is for. So hopefully that tip and trick helps with getting those FSBOs under contract because we do have short inventory. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks, guys.